Hey there, boys and girls, and welcome back to the Literature Lighthouse. We have another Shirley Hughes book for you today, the author and illustrator who wrote Dogger. Now, this one is a book about Alfie, and it is Alfie and the Birthday Surprise. Shirley Hughes has written a series of Alfie books, and I really love this one and wanted to share it with you today. So I hope you have a little light and joy and wonder as we read about Alfie and the birthday surprise. Now, I've got a question for you. Have you ever had to walk alongside a neighbor who experienced something sad? What did you do about it? Well, that's what our story is about today. How did Alfie love his neighbor who experiences something sort of sad? Are you ready? I'm ready. Here we go. Alfie and the Birthday Surprise, written and illustrated by Shirley Hughes. Alfie lived in the city with his mom and dad and his little sister Annie Rose. Right across the street lived their good friends, the McNallys. There were Bob and Jean McNally, their daughter Maureen, and their old cat, Smokey. Every morning when Maureen set off for school and Bob McNally went to catch his bus to work, they waved to Alfie and Annie Rose, and Alfie and Annie Rose waved back. Smokey was always there to see them off. On fine evenings, he would sit on the wall for a long time waiting for them to come back. Alfie's cat, Chessie, and Smokey were not good friends. They eyed each other suspiciously from opposite sides of the street. But Bob McNally told Alfie that Smokey was getting too old to pick fights. The McNallys were all very fond of Smokey, but Bob and he were special friends. When Bob came home from work, he always stopped for a chat with Smokey. Once, when Smokey was frightened up a tree and got stuck, Bob spent a whole afternoon trying to coax him down. "It's his back legs, you see," Bob told Alfie. "I'm afraid he's not as young as he used to be." Smokey spent most of his days asleep in his favorite place by the kitchen radiator or dozing in a patch of sunlight. But in the evenings, he would jump into Bob McNally's lap and they would watch television together. Smokey never wanted to play. When Alfie was visiting the McNallys, he would try pulling a piece of string across the floor and twitching the end, hoping that Smokey would chase after it. But Smokey only opened one slit of an eye, cocked his ears half-heartedly, and went back to sleep. If Alfie picked him up, he made bad-tempered noises that meant he wanted to be left alone. Smokey just wanted to sleep and sleep. One morning, Maureen came over to Alfie's house before breakfast. She was very sad. She told them that Smokey had died in the night. "He was almost as old as I am," Maureen told them tearfully, "and that's pretty old for a cat." Alfie was sad about Smokey being dead. "We won't see him again, will we?" he said to Mom. "Why does Smokey have to be dead?" He wanted to know. "Well, he was very old and tired, and he had come to the end of his life," said Mom. "But it was a happy life, and we will always remember him." Smokey was buried under a bush in the McNally's backyard. Maureen made a memorial for him in her woodworking class at school. Alfie helped her put it up. She had written on it in beautiful writing, "In memory of Smokey, a good friend." They all cried over it, and then they began to feel better, all except Bob. Smokey had been his special friend, and he missed him a lot, especially in the evenings when he came home from work and there was no Smokey waiting on the wall. "It's Dad's birthday next week," Maureen told Mom and Alfie when she was sitting in their kitchen one afternoon. "He'll be 52, and he says he doesn't want any presents at all, not even cards." "Not even balloons?" asked Alfie. "No, nothing. He's really down," said Maureen gloomily. and Mom says she doesn't know what to do to cheer him up. He's missing Smokey, I expect, said Mom. Then Alfie said, let's make a party for him. Everyone thought that was a wonderful idea, and they decided to keep it a secret until the day came, a surprise party for Bob McNally. When we go shopping, you can choose the present for him, Mom told Alfie. They looked at the great many things until they decided on a handsome pair of red socks, Alfie's favorite color. Mom bought a box of mint chocolates and some pretty wrapping paper. The party was such a big secret that Jean McNally came over to Alfie's house especially to make the birthday cake in their kitchen. Alfie helped her put on the candles, 5 blue ones and 2 pink ones. The day before the surprise party, all Bob's presents were ready. Jean had knitted him a sweater. Mom and Dad had bought him a potted plant, and Annie Rose was giving him a pitcher with a picture of the sun, moon, and stars on it. What's your present? Alfie asked Maureen, but she just looked mysterious and said she wasn't telling. Not yet. I'll let you know this evening, she promised. Annie Rose was already asleep and Alfie was in his bathrobe, having a story when Maureen rang the doorbell. She was carrying a basket tied up with string. Is that the present? Asked Alfie, very excited. Yes, you can look inside it if you want to, said Maureen. She put the basket down carefully in the middle of the floor and undid the string, and then she lifted the lid just a tiny bit. Alfie looked inside. It was something alive. He saw 2 very bright eyes and a pink nose with white whiskers, and then a soft paw shot out and patted his finger. Oh, Maureen, it's a kitten, said Mom. I got him from a friend at school, said Maureen, beaming. Will you look after him until tomorrow? He's got to be a real surprise. Oh, yes, shouted Alfie. Mom said that they could since it was just for one night, but we'll have to be careful that Chessie doesn't meet him or she might be jealous, she told Alfie. The kitten can sleep in my room, said Alfie. That night, Alfie and the kitten settled down together, or tried to settle down. It wasn't very easy because the kitten kept batting the edge of Alfie's quilt and trying to climb up it. And then he got onto the bed and started a game of hide and seek. And at last he curled up and went to sleep. Alfie loved feeling him at the end of his bed, but he would not have wanted him there every night. The next day, after Bob had gone to work, they were very busy going back and forth across the street and getting the party ready. Alfie and Maureen fed the kitten and put him in his basket. They hid him in the little room where the McNallys kept their washing machine. At first, the kitten did not like being in there. Don't worry, it won't be for long, whispered Alfie. Soon the kitten stopped scratching and was quiet. At 6 o'clock, everything was ready. They turned off the lights and waited in the dark, and at last they heard Bob coming up the front steps. They all kept as quiet as mice, even Annie Rose. Alfie was so excited he had to hang on to Dad's hand as Bob opened the front door. Hello? I'm home, he called. Silence. And then he walked into the living room. On went the lights, and they all burst out singing, Happy Birthday to you! At first, Bob was so surprised he just stood there with his eyes and mouth wide open, and then he began to smile. He was very pleased with his birthday party and his presents. He opened them all, one by one. But best of all was when Maureen, helped by Alfie, brought in the basket. Bob untied the string and out jumped the kitten. Right away, he started a game with Bob's shoelaces. Bob McNally called the kitten Boots. Boots was wonderfully good at inventing games. When Alfie pulled a piece of crumpled paper across the floor, Boots lay in wait for it and then pounced. He tossed it in the air and bicycled it furiously with his little back legs. Alfie showed Annie Rose how to play with Boots and how not to squeeze him too hard. Boots soon settled down as one of the McNally family, and Bob grew very fond of him, though, of course, he never forgot dear old Smoky. Alfie and Boots became great friends. Alfie was quite sure that Boots remembered how once, before Bob McNally's surprise birthday party, he had slept a whole night on the end of Alfie's bed. That was Shirley Hughes's Alfie and the Birthday Surprise. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. And I hope you can think about perhaps planning a surprise party for someone you love. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.